What's up, guys? Welcome back to the boxing circuit. We are back with another video. This time we're going to do a prediction for tonight's fight between Big Bang Zhilei Zhang and the juggernaut Joyce. This is, of course, a rematch following their first fight, which took place in April this year. Big Bang Zhang picked up the victory in that fight, stopped Joyce in the sixth round. For those of you who can remember, I think it was Joe's right eye was virtually closed shut midway through the sixth round. The ref consulted with a doctor and a decision was made that Joe could no longer continue, thus declaring Big Bang Zhang the winner. In doing so, he picked up the WBO interim world title. Like most of the big fights these days, a rematch clause was put in place, so these guys go again tonight. Once again, the WBO interim world title will be on the line. So I deliberately left this prediction to quite late in the day, and we are probably about, 6-7 hours from the ring walk. And the reason being is I was finding it quite hard to split these guys. I know a lot of people have Zhilei Zhang as the favourite going into this fight, and you can understand why. Rule of thumb is usually whoever won the first fight goes on to win the second fight. There's so many unknowns from the first fight that I don't think it's quite as straightforward coming into the second fight to suggest Zhilei Zhang will pick up the win once again. So I've deliberately held off to the last minute because I wanted to take in the interviews from the guys this week. I wanted to also to get some feedback from some of the pundits, as well as seeing the results of the weigh-in that took place yesterday to really sort of gauge who I think is the favourite and who ultimately I think is going to win. If we just look at the weights from yesterday, one of the good news for fight fans is both of these guys are come to fight. I highly doubt this fight is going the distance. They've made a statement. They've set their intentions out very clear from yesterday's weigh-in. Joyce in his first fight weighed in at 18 stone 4. So we all suspected when he weighed in at 18 stone 4 for the first fight with Zhang, the blueprint was similar to the fight he had with Daniel Dubois. So Zhilei Zhang is very heavy-handed. Daniel Dubois, very heavy-handed. Joyce chose to be lighter in the Daniel Dubois fight and use his agility to be able to control that fight, thus being able to stay out the way of Daniel Dubois' heavy right hand. Obviously, that was a successful outcome because he ended up stopping Dubois in the 10th round and picked up the victory. So I think a lot of people thought going into the first fight with Zhang, Joyce would adopt the same strategy. Obviously, it didn't turn out that way because Zhilei Zhang actually ended up stopping Joyce in the 6th round. Granted, it was a horrific eye injury, so it wasn't Joe's decision to stop. He actually looked like he was still prepared to go on. But he was only able to see out of one eye, so ultimately the right decision was made. But it feels like he just really got his whole strategy wrong in the lead up to the first fight and even during the course of the fight. Zhilei Zhang for that first fight came in at 19 stone 12, so it's not uncommon for Zhilei Zhang to be weighing in at the heavy 19 stones and possibly also almost topping 20 stone. He is a big man. He tends to come in big and heavy usually, so that wasn't exactly a shock. This time round, Joyce has gone heavy. So Joyce weighed in at yesterday just over 20 stone. So that is almost a stone and a half heavier than he was in the first fight. Zhilei Zhang has also come in heavier. So he's come in at 20.5. So he's come in setting his intentions straight because he's been saying all week that he's going to stop Joyce very early. So clearly he's put on some extra size, probably anticipating that Joe was going to put on size as well. But what this does say to me is this fight isn't going the distance because it's highly unlikely that you're going to have two men in that ring, both weighing over 20 stone, throwing bombs at each other and being able to fight for 36 minutes. I just don't see that happening. So there will be a stoppage in this fight. Continue to watch this video and I'm going to give you my view on who I believe that stoppage will be. So I think from a fan-friendly point of view, this will be a good fight and it will not go the distance. If you look at the first fight, I watched it yesterday, and as I know Zhilei Zhang won the fight, but I don't think it was as an impressive performance as certain people made out. Zhilei Zhang ultimately can only beat the version of fighter who's in front of him, and he was successful in doing that back in April. But when I rewatched the fight, I saw a guy in Zhang that I think is there for the taking. His punch variety was quite limited in that fight. Now, there might be an argument that says he couldn't miss with that straight left all night. So did he really need to vary it up? Because ultimately, he got the victory just pounding away at Joe's right eye. And that was that straight left, which just continued to get through all night. So perhaps he felt that he didn't need to vary up the punches. But for me, I didn't see much punch variation. So that would give me hope if I was in Joe Joyce's corner. Zhang can be a bit one-dimensional at times. His punch output, I think, was actually quite low in that fight as well. Joe was just standing there, so it wasn't very difficult for Zhilei Zhang to hit Joe when he did throw. So one of the positives of a low punch output for Zhilei Zhang was that his accuracy was on point. So he might have felt that, hey, I don't need to throw many punches because the ones that I do throw are getting through and they're causing damage. If you look back to the second round, he had Joe quite hurt in that round. Joe has amazing powers of recovery because he was getting hit constantly, and that second round was wobbled a couple of times, but went on to recover super quick. So from a Zhilei Zhang point of view, punch variation in that first fight, I think it felt limited. His punch output was quite low, and he's actually quite slow in his feet. So Joe obviously is coming heavier in this fight, so it suggests to me he's not necessarily looking to use his footwork and be moving around the ring light all night. So he's going to be standing there right in front of Zhilei Zhang, a bit like he did in the first fight. But this time he's going to have the weight behind him. So potentially he'll do a better job of absorbing the punches coming from Zhilei Zhang. So I'm looking at it and thinking there's certainly holes in Zhilei Zhang's game that Joe could exploit, which he didn't do a very good job of the first time. So if he has made those adaptations, it's very possible Joe could win this fight. So then I look at Joe Joyce in the first fight, and I think that he was okay. He was okay. His performance was actually okay. Yes, he kept getting hit, but we know this. We've watched Joe Joyce's fights before. He does get hit quite easy, and he does rely too much upon that chin to absorb these punches. But that's his game plan. Now, I'm not saying it's a good one because in the last fight, obviously, it failed. But Joe's not afraid to take that risk in terms of taking a punch to land a few. So Joe's punch variation is far greater, I believe, than Zhilei Zhang's. I think his engine is better than Zhilei Zhang's. And I think his output, obviously, is far, far higher than Zhilei Zhang's. Now, Zhilei Zhang is, on the surface, I believe, a harder one-hit puncher than Joe Joyce. But Joe Joyce has got that clubbing style where he's just relentless and hits you on the arms and the chest and the face and the head. So he just keeps coming forward, hence the name, the Juggernaut. So when I look at this, I feel to myself that there isn't a great deal more that Zhilei Zhang is capable of doing than what he exhibited in the first fight. Whereas on the flip side, I think Joe Joyce can be so much better. I think that he's coming with the right game plan this time. He's coming heavy. We know that he's going to be able to absorb Zhilei Zhang's punches. And when we look back at the first fight, Joe was ready to keep going. If that eye hadn't closed, I know it's a bit of a moot point because it did, and ultimately Zhilei Zhang won the fight. However, if that eye hadn't have closed, Joe, from a cardio point of view, looked like he was ready to continue. Zhilei Zhang was visibly slowing down, and his punches were lacking the same spite and pop that they had earlier in the fight. My only concern for Joe in this particular fight is he's come in at a career heaviest, which is 20 stone. Whereas Zhilei Zhang usually comes in at late 19 stones, early 20s. He's used to carrying that weight. Joe Joyce, this is a career heaviest. He's not used to carrying that weight. So my only concern is, can he do it? Can he fight and execute his style of fighting whilst being at his heaviest? Now, when he fought Joseph Parker, he came in at 19 stone 3 pounds. So he's almost a stone heavier than when he fought Joseph Parker. One of the promising things is obviously he stopped Joseph Parker in that fight. Nobody's done that before. Effectively knocked him out in the 11th round, and he did go late in that fight. So even carrying 19 stone 3, he was able to go very deep into the fight and get the stoppage. So that's encouraging, but this is virtually a stone heavier. So it's unknown territory for Joe Joyce in terms of a weight perspective. Ultimately, having said that, I've got to make a prediction. And my prediction is a Joe Joyce stoppage. I think that Zhang will do what he did in the first fight in the earlier rounds, but I think Joe's going to be a little bit cuter, and I think he's going to end up getting to Zhilei Zhang. Zhilei Zhang will visibly slow down, and it will be noticeable. And when he does, Joe will start to take over the fight, and eventually he'll stop him. I don't think it's going to be a one-shot stop. I think it'll be a barrage of punches, and ultimately the referee will jump in. So, in terms of the rounds, I'm going to go Joe Joyce stoppage between rounds 7 to 9. Again, it's not going to be a one-hit quit. It's going to be a barrage of punches, which is going to lead the ref to jump in because Zhilei Zhang will no longer be throwing punches back, not defending himself, giving the referee no choice but to jump in and stop the fight. Joe Joyce will regain his WBO interim world title belt, and eventually go on to face Alexander Usyk, or be elevated to world champion. So, rooting for a big Joe win tonight. I very much expect Joe to do the business, and looking forward to a great fight. Let me know your feedback. Let me know your predictions, and I'll see you on the other side. Thanks again for watching, guys. I'll catch you soon.